And so it's like whoever is in charge of the world, this invisible people, they have come together and said, it's bad to be fat. Hey, everybody, it's bad to be fat. And so the memo has been passed around the world and for generations and generations, hundreds and hundreds of years. And so because of that, things like the way that fat people are able to access healthcare. So, for example, if you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, doctor, I've got a terrible headache. As a fat person, you're more likely to hear, have you thought about losing weight? Versus, oh, let's see, what's going on with your head. And in turn, that means fat people are less likely to go to the doctors because they're always prescribed weight loss. The world is built for straight sized people, not for fat people, which is weird because a large majority of the population is fat. So, for example, chairs, like if you go to a restaurant, how often, if you're straight sized, start to notice how often the chairs are not built for fat people. So, for example, they will have arms. Or they'll be like super flimsy, like kind of like tiny little metal stools or whatever. Clothes stores. So I am a small medium fat. So there's a kind of a fat scale to recognize that people who are like a super fat person or a medium fat person, they experience more stigma and marginalization than someone who is a smaller fat person. And so for me, there is one clothes shop that I can go in and try on clothes, but I am at the very top end of their range. And so if the thing doesn't fit me, then I have no clothes. And most fat people can't try on clothes anywhere. And so all shopping has to be done online. Most people won't date a fat person, so only 25% of straight people would date a fat person. So the list goes on and on and on, like it's non-stop. And because of that, from the first time that I knew that I had a body and I understood what my body meant to the world, I knew my body was wrong. And one of my very first memories is the age of, I think, about 5 years old, it being a really hot summer's day and I was at school. And at the time it was cool to have crop tops and all of the girls were rolling up their tops and tying a little knot in it. And I knew that I shouldn't, because if I did, it would mean showing my belly, and my belly was wrong. And I look back now at pictures of young Victoria and I'm like, no, show your belly, oh my gosh. But I had just taken those messages that I'd seen in cartoons, that I'd seen on, TV adverts, that I'd seen from, my mum saying that she's too big and she's a straight sized person, and just taken that as fact. And because of that, I always thought that I was less of a person, that, the currency of whether you're a good or bad person is heavily tied up in what you look like. And so I started to accept less into my life. By the time I was 17, I was homeless and living in this shelter for for children, young people who were homeless. And I was like, is it that big a deal that someone like me is homeless? Probably not, because, I am fat and horrible. And then I started dating a 30-year-old abusive guy when I was 17. I was with him for 2 years and he was awful, terribly abusive. And I just thought, well, what can I expect? I'm lucky that anyone would even date me because I'm fat. So also, like, accepting shitty jobs. It would always be like, well, they're being kind by hiring me because I'm fat. Just, on and on and on of me making excuses for, people who gave me anything in life. It wasn't really giving me anything, like, or interacted with me. I'd just be like, they're so kind to overlook my horrendous body. And that was not true at all. So yeah, it affects everything.